Hello friends, my name's the real Emile and welcome back to some more Forza Top Gear Labs. Today we're taking a look at some more of the slowest cars here in Forza Motorsport 6, and we start with the Abarth 595, 28 horsepower, 1,257 pounds of weight. This is the least powerful vehicle here today, however it is the lightest vehicle. Whether that'll make much of a difference though, I don't really know, to be honest with you. In fact, I can tell you, it didn't. This thing's slow. I do really like the 595, to be honest with you, though. It's probably one of my favourite of the people's cars, I guess, of the late 50s, early 60s, and all the rest of it. I do like the standard Fiat 500, but the Abarth 595 is a little bit mad. I wish we had the 1000 TC in this game, but unfortunately we don't, so... this is the most powerful original Fiat 500 we have in the game. Of course, it's the only Fiat 500 we have in the game as well, or at least in this older generation. 28 horsepower means that this is predictably slow. Yeah, I don't think it went much above 70 during any of this. I believe it's a 4-speed manual. Gearbox is surprisingly decent on this vehicle. Handling as well is pretty decent. Again, it's kind of hard to make a 28 horsepower car handle badly. You'll see it sort of bucking and leaning through the corners. You don't really feel that when you're actually driving the car. Suspension feels relatively solid on this vehicle. Yep, it's just predictably slow, really. That's the main characteristic of the 595. I will say, unfortunately, with the way this car works, trying to put any more power in this car doesn't really end well. It does in the Horizon games, but for some reason when I've tried it in this Motorsport 6 here, yeah, it didn't end particularly well. I have a build, I believe, on this car on the channel, which didn't end particularly well. I didn't really put much more power into it, so... the 595, you sort of have to accept it as it is, and as it is, it's a slow car, but it is kind of fun to chuck around. Next up, we have the Volkswagen Beetle, 40 horsepower, whoa, 12 more than the 595. 1,760 pounds of weight as well. The Beetle. I don't like the Volkswagen Beetle, to be honest with you. It's really not my sort of car. I like the 595 because it's kind of small and fun and cool. The Beetle isn't any of those things. But even I have to admit, it's good. It's good fun. I hate to say this as well, I'd say this is probably a little bit more fun to chuck around than that 595. Just because this has a little bit more power to it, you could really just throw this thing into the corners. It's a lot of fun to drive, strangely enough. Yeah, it only has 40 horsepower. Yeah, it's slow. It's just stupid slow. But once you hit a corner, man, you can just throw this in, and it's so much fun to just try and throw it in. Yeah, it's a good handling vehicle as well, surprisingly enough. You know, it won't really let go. If you want something sort of fun to throw around, say, Catalonia School or even Top Gear Track, the Beetle isn't too bad a shot. I'd still probably go with the Mark 1 GTI Golf over this. I do think the Mark 1 Golf's a little bit more fun to drive, and it's got a little bit more power behind it as well. But the Beetle certainly surprised me with just how fun this vehicle is. Again, I don't like the Volkswagen Beetle. I really don't like this vehicle. Between this and the Samba bus, I'd probably say this is definitely the better vehicle to go with. The Samba bus has slightly more power, however it does weigh 800 pounds more, and also the Beetle is the more fun of the two to drive. Of course, we'll have to wait until the end of the episode to see just how much time difference there is between the Samba bus and the Beetle, but yeah, Beetle's a fun car to throw around, which I was not expecting to say at the end of today. Next up, we have the Mercury Coupe, 110 horsepower, 3,375 pounds of weight. This is the heaviest vehicle here today. 3,300 pounds is quite a lot. Everything else here is under 3,000 pounds. In fact, I've just realised this is 800 pounds heavier than the next heaviest car, so yeah. The Coupe is quite a hefty vehicle. I was sort of weighing this up between using the Deluxe Coupe and this. I ended up going with the Mercury Coupe, just because this has never been around the track before. I've never really driven the Mercury Coupe in Forza Motorsport 6. Of course, in Horizon 3, this is the go-to drag car right now. You can stick like 1500 horsepower in it and keep it in C-Class, and yeah, you can win drag races in this thing pretty easily. As it stands stock, it's alright, I guess. The differential on this thing is awful. It's got one of those diffs where basically as soon as you turn the corner, revs start rising. And yeah, I hate those sort of differentials, they really irritate me. Quite a few of these sort of older sports coupes have it. I'm not really sure how much of a sports coupe the Mercury Coupe is. I would say not much, but yeah, you know, stuff like, I think it was one of the Escorts, maybe, or the Opel Kadett, or something like that. We had one of the older sports cars go around and they had a bad differential, and this has a similar sort of thing going on. But I mean, it's alright. I'm not really sure if you could do too much to this, provided you like upgraded and stuff. Maybe you could. But yeah, as it stands, it's just not particularly great. There are better cars available in the class. Next up, we have the Theist X19, 61 horsepower, 2,210 pounds of weight. The only car here today which is mid-engine, rear-wheel drive. It's kind of like an MR2, except it's half of an MR2, essentially. That's basically what the X19 is. The X19 is fun. That's the best way to describe this car. It is a huge amount of fun to chuck through the corners. Probably the most fun I had of any of the cars here today was done in this. You know, don't get me wrong, the Beetle was fun, the 595 was fun, but this is just a bit better. It's a little bit more powerful again, which does add to the excitement. The strange thing is, when it comes to like actually fun to drive cars on these games, I usually find that they're under 100 horsepower and they're usually from about the 80s, and the X19 kind of suits that. You know, it's got 61 horsepower, it's from the 70s, I believe. I think this is a 75 car, I could be wrong on that. But yeah, the X19, you can see it through there, it's just huge amounts of fun chuck around. You've got loads of grip in this thing. I can imagine upgraded these things are pretty decent as well. You know, I'm not really sure how it would compete with, say, an AW11 MR2, which, you know, you can get for around the same price, and I'd probably go with that over this, just because the AW11's a bit better handling, it has more speed to it, certainly. It might actually weigh about the same as well. But the X19 is definitely a fun little distraction. It's chuckable. Cool car. It's got pop-up headlights as well, which is pretty darn cool. Yeah, the X19 is often overlooked, but I definitely think you should give this car a go. If you're going to try any of the cars here today, I would definitely give the X19 a go, because, again, just huge amount of fun to chuck through the corners. I'm sure it can make a pretty decent race car if you wanted to invest some time into it. Next up, we have the Volvo Amazon 123 GT, 115 horsepower, 2,515 pounds of weight. This is the most powerful vehicle here today, however it is the second heaviest vehicle. However, the Mercury Coupe actually had 5 less horsepower than this, but weighed 800 pounds more. So the Amazon is probably going to be quicker than the Coupe. In fact, out of all the cars, if we're saying handling-wise here today, the Volvo is probably the best of all. This is the most normal of all the vehicles here today to drive. It isn't actually particularly slow. I was just sort of looking for the PI rankings, and I wanted to make this episode a little bit different from the last episode. The last episode sort of featured some interesting sort of, I think we had like the Pontiac Aztec and stuff, as well as, you know, the iSets bubble car and stuff. And I wanted to try some of these sort of very early sporting sedans today. So yeah, 123 GT fit that bill, as does the next car as well. Yeah. Volvo Amazon, very decent car to drive. I did enjoy it, actually. I have, again, this is another car I have sort of built up for racing before, and it was a little bit slidey. Admittedly, I built it to B-Class. I'm sure if you stuck this thing in D-Class racing or C-Class, it's probably very quick. One would imagine, because, you know, you can put race suspension on it, get race tyres on it, stick a relative amount of power on it, and I'm sure you've got a fairly decent handling car. From stock, yeah, decent car to drive. I do like the 123 GT. Of course, I'm a huge Volvo fan. And yeah, the Amazon, not one of my favourite Volvos, certainly, but it's still a pretty darn cool car. And finally today, we have the Datsun 510, 96 horsepower, 2,127 pounds of weight. Pretty decent figures there, actually. 96 horsepower, obviously it doesn't sound like a lot, but compared to everything else here today, you know, it's pretty decent. Also, weight-wise, 2,100 pounds. Decent. Overall, driving characteristics, this isn't quite as good as the Amazon is when it comes to the corners. It is alright, certainly. It's a cool car. I love the way that this thing looks. Like, in yellow, it just looks pretty cool. It's like a... It just looks like a generic old saloon that you would have drawn when you was 5 years old, but it's quite fun to chuck around. But yeah, it's alright to drive. It isn't spectacular. The Volvo is definitely the better car of the two here. Part of the reason for that is, again, it has another one of those dodgy differentials. Very similar to the one in the Mercury Coupe, unfortunately, so that does dampen the fun a little bit when it comes to this car. It does come in bright yellow, which obviously is a bonus point towards it, unlike the Volvo, which comes in just a bunch of dull reds and blues and greens. But yeah, the 510 just wasn't quite as fun to drive as I was expecting it to be, which is a bit of a shame. I was expecting this car to be a hoot, to be honest with you. I was expecting this to handle better than the 123 GT, and it kind of doesn't, so... Yeah, you know, again, out of the two, I would definitely go with the Volvo over the 510, but the 510's another one of those cars which shows real potential. You know, I'm sure, again, if you put race suspension on it, big tyres, this could be a fun little handling car, maybe for like autocross or something, but as it stands stock, it's a little bit weak. On to the times, and the Amazon is the quickest car of the day, going into 194th with 145.066, and following neatly behind it is the Datsun 510, going to 195th with 145.372. A pretty decent showing from both of those cars, to be honest with you. They are good times, beats the Grand Wagoneer by over a second. A little bit down on a Mark 1 GTI Golf is the Amazon and the Datsun, but yeah, decent showing from both of those cars. The rest of the cars today we find lower down the board. In 199th we have the Theist X19, 149.192. Very much down on the Aztec and the 356 Speedster, still the most fun car here today to drive. The Mercury Coupe is in 201st with 149.997, just missing out on the Hummer H1 Alpha there. Yeah, the Mercury Coupe just wasn't particularly amazing. The Beetle is in 203rd with a 149.191, and the Abarth 595 is just below that in 204th with a 202.635. Considering the Abarth has only 28 horsepower, I think that's a pretty darn decent time. And yeah, the Beetle also set a surprisingly decent time, just under the 2-minute mark there, so it doesn't quite fall into the 2-minute crew. Anyways, that is it for today. Next time, normal service will resume. Hopefully we'll be driving something a little bit quicker, so join me for whatever that may be. Anyways, friends, I want to thank you all very much for watching. My name has been The Real Emile, and until next time, farewell.